All right, so in my last video, we talked about the updates with Express LRS and the performance we were seeing out of the Happy Model transmitters and receivers. In that video, I alluded to, and you probably saw maybe the results we were getting for R9 Access, ACCST, and the R9 Archer RS race modules. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the results we're getting and see how those add up against the high performance external modules you can get for your radio. So all the tests to date I've been completing with my FrSky QX7S Access radio. And with that, I got the Access R9 unit as well, which is different than the older Access ACCST. So this is the 2018 module, and they call this the 2019 module. I like to refer to them as the ACCST because it says on the bottom ACCST, and this says on the bottom Access. Might be a little easier to refer to it that way than 2 years that aren't show up on the module. And again, the Access module works in the Access radio. So you have to have an Access radio for the Access module. And that was a real point that frustrated me and a lot of people in the hobby that, hey, so for your latest and greatest stuff, now I have to buy a whole new radio. I have an ACCST radio as well. This is a new radio that I acquired through the help of a very popular YouTuber you all know, and I really appreciate his help on that to do this testing. With that, you can run the old ACCST R9 units in this radio as well. I had Express LRS flash to this for the test, and then I flashed it back to the ACCST firmware, the R9 firmware from FrSky. So that's a question that people sometimes ask is, can you really flash? Yes, you can really flash it back. I did it and did these tests. So confirm, yep, you can easily flash it back. You can easily flash back the receivers as well. You have to use the radio and the port just like you're used to with FrSky. And for the Access radio, you can flash it to Express LRS and flash this back to ACCST. I mean the module here, the Access R9 module. Other little things I've been able to receiver for both tests for this module, the older module and the newer module, use the same receiver, which was in the newest Access OTA receiver. You can flash it with the ACCST firmware to go with this sucker, or you can flash it with the Access firmware for R9 to go with this thing. And it works either way. If you're used to an older radio, there was a baud rate setting in here that you could do with at least the QX7 ones for 115 kilohertz baud rate or 400 kilohertz baud rate. The Access radios are always on 400 kilohertz baud rate, so there's no, lower speeds for whatever reason, and you don't need to do any module updates. Again, if you have an Access radio, which is the only radios they sell anymore, you can use Express LRS with the old module, Express LRS with the new module. You can use the old R9 module in this radio. You can use the new R9 module in this radio, and they're all at the latest, greatest 400K baud rate. The newest receivers work for the old units, the new units for the R9 system. And yeah, hopefully that helped clear up a little of those questions out there. The other thing we were able to test is you can flash the latest internal transmitter with the 2.4 gigahertz that's in here as well. And you have the latest Archer RS receivers. These have a race mode where they send packets at 4 millisecond frame rate. No telemetry, but that's pretty normal like the rest of Flash the Latest on this. Again, this is only Access. So this is an Access receiver, Access transmitter, 2.4 gigahertz with the race mode. How does that work? How does it look compared to everything else? So let's get into it. Let's start checking out the data and see what we see. So I will make a link to this sheet down below in PDF or image form. I might put it on my website and then have a link to that. I'll probably do that part, the website thing. And here you'll be able to see and inspect it. It has all the old test data, and then I'm just stacking on the new one. It's getting a little tricky because there's only so many colors in the rainbow that are differentiated from enough to see a difference. But I think I got everything there. So you can see here, and I stopped worrying about these bins so much. I was trying to put things into bins, 4 to 7, 5 to 15, 10 to 40, 20 to 50 milliseconds. And, you know, that made some sense for the high performance external modules because there's quite a bit of competition going on there. But the R9 units down here, they weren't fitting into those bins right. So I just kind of stopped the lines up here and just stacked them aside of each other. If you look here, it's interesting. So the top one is Access, the bottom one is ACCST, as you can see in the names here. And then you have 1 to 8 channel, 1 to 16 channel, telemetry on, telemetry on, telemetry on, telemetry on, and then this is telemetry off, 1 to 8 channel. This is 1 to 16 telemetry off. And this is what I mentioned in the last video. Just don't turn telemetry off. The same thing happens for Crossfire. You turn telemetry off, it gets bad. Here, I want to just show you because I don't want anybody ever to take my word for anything. You can see for Crossfire here, you're getting 6 to 13 milliseconds for 8 channel, but 8 channel with telemetry off, now you're getting 15 to 35 milliseconds. So looking at this in post, I know what's going on. If you take a look at Crossfire here and set it to 50 Hertz mode instead of dynamic mode with telemetry on 12 channel, you can see the end-to-end latency we're getting here. It's a spread from 15 milliseconds to 35 milliseconds, average 25 milliseconds for the end-to-end latency. And then, of course, the packet interval is averaging around 20 millisecond packets. So you can see these numbers are up and down a little bit. That's the jitter we're always talking about. And if you look back in the dynamic mode, when we have it in 12 channel, so same amount of channels, and going to here, and it's 12 channels in dynamic mode with telemetry off, you're getting the same result. So in dynamic mode, when you turn off telemetry, it is basically defaulting back to the lowest. It's the LoRa system at the 50 Hertz mode, and you can see that with the packet interval goes up. Like here, for example, we can look at dynamic mode with 12 channels, telemetry on. This is dynamic mode with 12 channels and telemetry off. And you can see how this jumps to this for end to end. And then the packet interval goes from 6 milliseconds to 20 milliseconds. And it's just in line with the same thing you're receiving if you just set it to 50 Hertz mode with telemetry on or off, same channels. The channel count really doesn't make a difference. And that is the same thing we're seeing on R9 unit when it has the native firm. As soon as you turn telemetry off, your end-to-end latency goes, you know, from 18 milliseconds all the way up to 45 milliseconds, where the same thing, 1 to 8 with telemetry on, is down. Show you that the jitter's not that much different between the two. So just keep telemetry on. This is R9 Access, 1 to 16 channels in this case, telemetry on. And you can see 6.6 milliseconds, end to end is 8 to 17, like we've already talked about. And then the same thing with telemetry off, 1 to 16, telemetry off. You can see the packet or the end to end goes from 17 to 40 milliseconds in that case. You know, it starts to taper off here at 38, 39 milliseconds. There's a bunch, 14 over 40. And the difference here, though, is that the packet rate does not change. So they continue to send packets at 6.67 millisecond intervals. Now, what's unknown with that is, are they duplicating packets? So that although you get separate packets here, they're actually sending the same stick position. This test doesn't test for that. Whereas Crossfire is just making the packet interval longer, and which we can measure that, and we know with doing beta flight and real flight testing, since they change packet intervals when they change modes, you can see that you don't have to be very far away where in dynamic mode where it switches down to 50 Hertz LoRa based mode. Even within a racetrack, it will switch down. So a lot of people lock it at 150 Hertz mode in Crossfire. It's harder to detect since they're doubling the packets or they're duplicating packets potentially with beta flight, with debug modes and stuff. But yeah, I'll take a look at that in the future to see if I can, now that I know what to look for, to see if I can see that happening with the R9 units and you know, the packet doubling, and you can kind of, you'd be able to see with actual stick movements when they're actually starting to double up on packets without actually changing the data. They're just 2 frames are the same, then they're doing the next 2 frames, or you know, there are a bunch of frames that are different and then 2 frames are the same again, things like that. You can see then ACCST, that's good. You know, I'd expect a new protocol to be a little bit better, not worse. So I'm happy to see it's better. Would it be sad to see it be worse? So you can see the end-to-ends, again, a little stacked, a little lower. You're running, your mid-range there is 12 to 14 milliseconds, where mid-range here is more like 19 to 20 milliseconds. Again, of course, if you increase your channel count to 1 to 16 channels, so you have 16 channels instead of 8 channels, and you can see the distribution. This was up to 30 as well, but the distribution is more fully across. With 1 to 16, you still get a couple, you get some packets up here, but most of the distribution is down here still at 8 to 18 milliseconds. So that's good. It's newer. Same thing over here. You can kind of see that the distribution is a little longer, and this is even with 1 to 8. So 1 to 16, those scenarios are really interested, but just trying to get a representative sample of stuff and just save some time. Archer receivers. So in the Archer receiver, so that's 2.4 gigahertz instead of the 900 megahertz, you can see we're getting some okay, end to end, 8 to 12. That's okay. It's not as good as Ghost. It's not as good as Tracer. It's not as good as Express LRS, of course. But yeah, it's better than R9. I did not run my D8, D16 tests yet. I'm going to be doing that in the future. Now, in the Archer scenario here, 1 to 8 with telemetry off, now it's better. You get 8 to 12 milliseconds, where here it's 10 to 17 milliseconds just by turning telemetry on. So that makes more sense to me, honestly. Of course, with Archer back here, we can expect that if you turn the channels up, you get a little bit longer. It's actually not much different. You're getting for 8-channel telemetry on, it's 10 to, so 8-channel, 16-channel, doesn't make a difference on your N10. We saw the same thing with Crossfire as well. 8-channel, 12-channel. These are different tests. Obviously, you're going to see the little bit of different distribution, but in all, same thing. So I don't know that reducing the channels, it doesn't seem to affect the end-to-end on this. It must be, maybe it's a range thing. Probably impacts the range because it's less data that has to make it through with less channels. Let's just close this off with average end-to-end here. Normal mode, I guess. You're getting 10 millisecond average end-to-end versus 13. I don't know. It's a little bit different, a little bit less, but it's nothing to write home. You can see how that kind of stacks up. It's about the same as because the ones at the bottom are on top in the graph setup. So you can see Express LRS. I put Archer as a good one. It's kind of up here all by its own, so it doesn't have to deal with the stacking. But and then it looks like R9 Access, then Ghost Race. So R9 Access, 1 to 16 telemetry off was a little bit better than Ghost Race telemetry on. Obviously, you lost telemetry in that mix, and so on and so forth. So you can see compare, and different people might stack them a different way, but basically I had to do it that way just so you could see the better performers needed to be in the front, so you could see the thin line. And the more fuzzy ones I could put in the back because obviously they had a wider distribution, just like you can clearly see up here. So this up here, not to confuse things, this was the Archer not in race mode, 7 milliseconds. In race, bring this to the forefront. So if I come down here and look at the Archer and bring that, so I would say, Archer is holding its own. He's doing pretty good. Whether you would put Express at the bottom, I think Express is a little bit better. It's, that's interpretations up to you. You can see the red line versus the cyan line. I would say Express beating, just inching it out just a little bit, but you lose a little bit of features again with telemetry and sync off. Now with telemetry off, I would guess they're not doing the packing is good. So that even if they're doubling packets for sending syncs, they don't have telemetry on, so you don't have to worry about that. For sending like a sync pulse, just like Express LRS does, that might be the case. Further testing to come on that. But either way, at least the jitter on the packets that are being sent isn't kind of all over the place in packet lengths. It's a consistent packet length every time, whether it's being split or doubled in data or not, to contain other information and get other information through. Regardless, the packet jitter is good. Okay, well that is it. I will put the link down below. I'll make a little website for this thing and this PDF, and you can open it up and zoom in on it. The jitter comparisons are, you can zoom in and it's high fidelity. The Distributions, they're a little fuzzy. I don't know why Excel prints it that way. If anybody knows how to fix that, let me know. But you should be able to zoom in. The jitter ones are the ones that are kind of hard to thread that needle a little bit. But hopefully that helps you make the best selection for your high performance module or receiver. Now that we're talking Archer with FrSky, if you do have an access radio, if you're fairly new to the hobby, I'm sure you have an access radio because that's all they sell anymore unless you got a really old one. And you can easily tell at the bottom it says access. If you have a radio that says ACCST, that's the old one, that Archer receiver is not going to work for you on this one. It's pretty easy. Honestly, the Archer receivers is definitely the way to go if you have an access radio, whether you put it in the race mode or not. I'll make a link down below to a good video on how to set up the Archer receivers because it's kind of weird. You have to flick it into race mode. It cuts off telemetry, and then you got to put it on a switch. If you don't put it on a switch, it won't happen. I've tested that. There's a checkbox in the setup, but that's not going to do it. You actually have to do the switch thing that the video down below shows from another guy. So do check that out. So yeah, if you have an access radio, it's not a bad receiver to check out. If you're looking for a little bit of race condition, you can see the jitter's low. 4 millisecond packets, that's pretty good. It's not 2, but 4 is good. I mean, it's very competitive. I don't think the difference in your racing would be the module at that point. It's just you. It's just like golf. Like new golf clubs aren't going to make you Tiger Woods. It's you. It's practice. So yeah, I would say that would get you there. As always, I hope this helped. See the links down below if you want to check out a little bit more zoomed in on that spreadsheet and spend a little more time with it. That's a PDF form. I'll see you on the next one.